On the road to now here, all you have is God, but it isn't the God of the Old Testament or the New Testament. It's the trickster God, the one Jesus didn't tell us about until now. And the only reason he's telling us now is that he has revealed himself as a trickster. Only a trickster can worship a peekaboo God. You see, the God we have been worshiping for thousands of years is not available to us anymore, nor is the Jesus who died on the cross. That Jesus has come and gone. We don't need him anymore. We are all doing an excellent job carrying our own crosses. We don't need Jesus to die for our sins anymore. We're doing just fine, dying for our own sins. When Jesus speaks to us now, the basic message is the same, but the reference points, the symbols, are totally different. The gospel on the road to now here is not the same gospel that called Peter, Luke, or John. They needed a road with a destination, a different one perhaps than the one others were taking, but a road to a destination, all the same. They too were on the road to nowhere, but they didn't know it. And Jesus couldn't tell them because they wouldn't have answered the call if he told them that the goal itself was an illusion. Very few will answer the call now. Not many people want to know that they are already enlightened. That teaching doesn't sell much product. It drives the software and hardware people crazy. It's anti-consumer. There's nothing to buy because nothing is missing. When Jesus came before, he was a good salesman. This time, he's not trying to sell anything. How can a trickster sell a peekaboo God? Who wants to buy it? Finally, a teaching that can't be bought or sold, yet that doesn't mean people won't try to do it. You yourself probably bought this book. You might even be inspired to give workshops on it. But you will be wasting your time just as you are wasting your time reading this book. There is nothing in this book that you don't already know. The best this book can do is remind you of what you know in your gut to be true, but have forgotten or ignored, perhaps because you didn't want to face the naked truth. But facing that truth really isn't so painful, and all the time you spent on the road to somewhere was not wasted. After all, it got you to the road to now here. And even though you were on that road all the time, you didn't know that you were. So there has been progress, so to speak. Anyway, welcome home. Here you won't find any recipes for enlightenment. Because you are already enlightened, you just don't want to admit it to yourself or anyone else. It's time to come out of the closet. Admit that the truth is in you and has always been. Celebrate the smashing of idols, the crashing of belief systems, gurus, and all forms of external authority. Celebrate that fact. The truth for you is known within. Read that again. Celebrate the fact that the truth for you is known within. Celebrate the fact that you don't have to give this truth to anyone else because they already have it. No more priests, missionaries, rabbis, Buddhas, or Blaskavas. I can't say that word. No more teachers or preachers, leaders or followers. What you have belongs to all. It's like air. It's in universal circulation. It would be preposterous to try to buy or sell it. Most of what we value is what we think is lacking in us. It is not missing, but we think it is. And every filler is a substitute, a sham. We spend our lives chasing what we cannot find and do not really need. A puzzling fact, don't you think? Yes, it is time to come out. It is time to shout it to the rafters. Nobody has what I need because what I need is an illusion. There's no cure because there is no disease. There's nobody in here or out there who needs to be fixed. Yahoo! It's the truth, and it has made us free to travel the road to now here unabashed. Indeed, it's our favorite hike. Every time we do this trail, something new and interesting happens. The hike is only boring or exciting or pleasant or distressing if we compare it to the last. On the road to now here, There is no time, no past, no future, and therefore only a timeless present, impossible to delineate or describe. To talk about the road, you must walk it, and the more you walk it, the less talk seems necessary. Truth and paradox. Truth is paradoxical. To grasp the whole of it, you must approach it from both sides. One-sided approaches lead only to half-truths. The world of perception is composed of half-truths. It is as untrue as it is true, as distorted as it is clear. The statement, God is within, may seem to be a simple truth, yet it is easily misunderstood. What is it that God is within? The mind, the heart, our experience? If God is in the mind, is God in my attack thoughts? If God is in the heart, is it in my anger? If God is in my experience, is it in the way I perceive my life? Perhaps you may concede, but isn't the opposite also true? Is it not also just as true that God is not in my thoughts, my emotions, and my perceptions of my life because all of these are limited? Only when you say God is within and without do you begin to approach truth. God is within my experience, yet it is also outside and beyond my experience. When I say this is it, I must also concede this isn't really it at all. Both are true simultaneously. Or to say it another way, both are equally untrue. You cannot make any statement to the exclusion of its opposite and approach truth. All statements that do not concede the equal truth of their opposites are simply opinion. They are subjective, self-indulgent perceptions of reality. Until we concede the paradoxical nature of reality, we will never transcend conflict in thoughts or actions, consciousness or relationships. For everything you think is true, there is something else equally true that contradicts it. As soon as you concede the validity of the opposite point of view, you move out of duality. A perfect example of this is the concept of Dante, which, as it became accepted in the greater consciousness, led to the dismantling of the Berlin Wall and the ending of the Cold War. Transcendence of conflicts came from mutual respect. Mutual respect comes from regard for the opinion of others. All opinion is equally important or unimportant. Black is as good as white. If you insist on agreement or synthesis, if you say black and white must become gray in order for duality and conflict to be transcended, you will wait a long time. But if you say black is fine as black, white is fine as white, both are equally acceptable, then black and white cease to be in opposition. Then there is mutual acceptance of both positions. The basis of conflict is literally dissolved. It is ironic we spend our whole lives looking for agreement, thinking it will make us happy. But the very search for agreement creates the conditions for our unhappiness. The search for agreement is simply the search to be right, to have one's opinion reinforced by others. The more we seek agreement, the more we find disagreement. Hitler, for example, received a great deal of reinforcement for his ideas. He also found a great deal of opposition. It is the same for you and me. If we look for agreement, we will find it, but we will also find an equal amount of disagreement. A change of heart. To live a life that is conflict-free is possible, but only if conflict is totally acceptable. As soon as you insist on a quiet ocean, the typhoon is born. Accepting the polarities brings us into the heart where all things are acceptable as they are. Can we accept, for example, that we want something and do not want it at the same time? Or will we push for a decision for or against, pro or con? To push for a decision in the face of conflict or ambivalence is a way of punishing ourselves and others. Instead, let us embrace both extremes of our thinking and feeling. Let us acknowledge all the things we want about the job or the relationship and all of the things that make us want to run away. Then we will have our arms around all of it. Let us embrace the totality of our experience and live with its inherent contradictions, knowing that choice is impossible until our inner dynamic shifts. Being with conflict and ambivalence brings a peaceful acceptance from which clarity springs. If you try to deal with ambivalence at the mental level, you will only deepen it. But if you bring it all into the heart, into the depths of your being, where you are vast, where you contain multitudes of contradictory propositions, in an embrace of patience and compassion, then ambivalence loses its edge and urgency. Conflict held in a loving manner does not threaten to split us apart in our thoughts or in our interactions with each other. That's worth repeating. Conflict held in a loving manner does not threaten to split us apart in our thoughts or in our interactions with each other. Ambivalence held with the blessing of self-love and compassion for others does not lead to separation. How do you do this? How do you hold the contradictions of your mental, emotional states in a loving embrace? You begin by seeing the urgency in yourself. You see how desperate you are to choose and how this pressure to choose is a way of pushing the conflict away. And instead you welcome the conflict. You say, I welcome the parts of me which are at war with each other. I am the peacemaker. I accept you as you are. I respect your opinions. I will not act in a way that violates you. I am the peacemaker. I am large enough to contain these contradictions, to hold them patiently and silently. I do not have to choose now and so dishonor a part of myself. I will honor all of me, however long it takes. I am the peacemaker. I am the one who brings all conflict and ambivalence into the heart's quiet embrace. I am the one who brings a safe space for conflict to be. When there's a safety, conflict can be encompassed. Where there is safety, all of the split parts of myself can be honored and heard. Lest I learn to do this within my own consciousness, how can I do it in my relationship with you? If I cannot give safety to myself, how can I give it to you? What does it mean to still the mind? It means to accept its contents with loving attention, all of its contents, inclusively, all the judgments, doubts, the fears, the incriminations, to accept each as it arises, not because it is right or wrong, but because it is there, to accept what is without interpretation, to be present for self, to bring all the parts of self together in one patient moment of attention. What is a still mind but a compassionate one? Not a mind free of conflict, but a mind in which conflict is patiently accepted. As long as we are trying to get rid of conflict, we deepen it. As long as we are trying to choose between different points of view, we are sharpening the edge that divides them. The pressure to decide when we are in conflict is a two-edged sword. It appears to offer relief, but in reality, it exacerbates the wound. If we want to decide, we need to create a safe space to decide in. We need to step away from the pressure, the urgency. That way we take the sword of division and love it. In our love, its edge softens, still fades to a simple line drawn in the sand. When the tide comes in, it takes it away. There is no more division. What does it mean to turn the sword into a plowshare? It means to end conflict in oneself by accepting the extremes of one's mental, emotional experience. It means to give loving attention to both sides, to nurture the split-off parts of one's personhood equally, to be the parent of one's own wayward inner children who are at odds with each other like jealous siblings. What does it mean to be the peacemaker? But to bring peace in the face of conflict, to bring a safe space, a loving attitude, to learn to bless oneself when fear comes up. Ego mind cannot do this, for ego mind is at war with itself. It is divided. Only that which is not divided can bring peace.